only game show that's 3 dimensions away from Friday the 13th actually being able to finish their game, not because of a lawsuit. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Friday the 13th, the video game, released in 2017. Friday the 13th, the video game, was developed by Gun Media with the help of IllFonic, and was released basically an asymmetrical horror multiplayer game that is basically where one player is Jason and the other 7 players are basically in a map where of your choosing, and you basically got to run and hide from this player and try to fight back or try to escape from this player as Jason. Essentially, it's kind of like, it's like almost like hide and seek with murder in a way, And I never heard before playing Friday the 13th the game of asymmetrical multiplayer games. Up until like, well, kind of like Call of Duty, Warzone, PUBG, and Fortnite are basically asymmetrical in a way, And so I was kind of shocked about that. I'm like, well, you know what? I might as well, take a look at this game because, I just read tragic news that Friday the 13th, the video game, is going to be shut down in 2024, and I figure you might as well, might as well review it because I've been playing it recently and I'm just having a fun time. So Friday the 13th, the game, of course, was developed by Gun Media, and the game idea of the game is, it's like you're on a sandbox map, and basically you got to try to find stuff to help you survive Jason. And basically you could put a car, you're mainly supposed to find pieces either to a boat or a car, or pieces to a phone, and if you get the phone, you call the police. Also there's a radio you can find and just randomly call Tommy Jarvis, who, if basically you die in the game, or if one of your friends dies or somebody dies in the game, it'll randomly spawn whoever died to Tommy. You'll play as Tommy Jarvis, and essentially you can come back and try to help fight the other players to survive, and basically gives you second life. And so, as a player, you're basically meant to, try to survive Jason and everything, and you get a pocket knife, so if Jason grabs you, you basically can, stab him in the neck with a pocket knife, and he can give you some delay time. Jason basically is almost invincible, so you can't really kill Jason. There's only one way to kill Jason, and it's essentially is you have to go to the mom's shed, get a sweater, you have to be a female to do it, and you basically have to have Tommy Jarvis, and you have to knock Jason's mask off and get his mask, and basically the woman has to freeze him, and then Tommy Jarvis has to hit him in hit him in the back, and then you'll hit him in the face with a machete and kill him, and that's how he dies. Well, it's much easier to just get to the exit and escape, because mostly you just gotta wait like 4 to 2 minutes for the cops to come, or you could outrun the timer, but the game's like 15 minutes apiece, so really it'd be easier just to call the cops and outwait them, and obviously it just depends on which Jason you get. So for instance, each counselor has a different stamina. So for instance, if you choose like Tiffany, your stamina is not great, but you're much more undetectable from Jason, because Jason can see red heat signatures, and so Jason basically will see heat signatures, but you can get perks where you're undetectable from Jason. And also, like, for instance, if you're Bugsy, which is this African American character who looks like a football player, you're more detectable by Jason because you're so fast. And so basically, it's much harder to play as that character than it would be to play as, Tiffany, because Tiffany was much more undetectable, but Bugsy's faster, so if Jason shows up, you have a better chance of getting away than Tiffany. And of course, there's several other characters, like there's a nerd in the game, then there's a stoner, then there's a jock and a preppy kid, and there's the goth girl, and then there's the, rich, girl, and there's all these characters. And then of course Jason, when it comes to Jason, playing as Jason, your goal is to basically kill all the camp counselors before time runs out or before they all escape. And of course, you gotta put bear traps around the cars, and put bear traps around like the houses and everything. And you can destroy a phone box where they can't call the police, and you can put a bear trap around it, because they can try to fix it if you destroy it. Or you can put around generators to where it's much harder, to make it even harder for them to fix the generator because they need power to call the police. And you can also, if they jump in the water, it pings you so you can go find them. And also, when you get your perks roll up as Jason, so basically you have to wait for your perks to get there. So like, you can teleport around, which is like it takes you a minute before your perk rolls, and we can teleport around. And also you can you can Evil Dead yourself, which is what I call it, where you just go in first person view and go woo, and just float around, you know. And then once you get there, it's much cooler. But yeah, that's it, I thought that was it's fun, you know. And Jason, it is fun. I always enjoy playing as a camp counselor more because, see, playing as a camp counselor is fun to me because you can go around, you know, and just trying to, you know, hide from Jason, scared. If you don't want to face Jason, you can go hide until, you know, it's much funnier. And Jason has his own theme music, so every time when you hear that theme music, you're like, oh crap, Jason's here. And if Jason shows up, you're like, oh, I hope he doesn't find me. And it's like you can hide under beds and you can hide in closets and stuff. And if Jason stabs the bed, and if you're under it, you're dead. Or if he stabs the closet, you're dead. Or, you know, and it's fun. You know, it's a fun game. I also really like, you know, like how much character they bring back some of the voice actors from the movies, like Shelley and Tommy Jarvis, and they make it feels like, oh my god, this is like their. And the attention to detail is great too because, for instance, if you played in Higgins Haven, there it's like they went to the part 3 movie and then they just like photo mapped everything and like, okay, that's from there. And it's like, I like when you play the game, you're like, oh, I died there, it's so great, I was killed right there in that lake part right there. I mean, it's really great. And they have, like, I think the first 8 Jasons, they have those, you know, outfits. Or maybe the first 9 Jasons. Like, I know Jason X is not in the game, even though, like, he's in the virtual cabin. He's just not in the game playable because of some tragic thing happened before, like, you know, the game finished. Well, for instance, like, they have, like, all the Jasons up until they don't have the 2009 remake Jason X or Jason Freddy vs. Jason. They don't have those Jason, but every other Jason is in the game. And they have mostly all original characters from the game, except for Tommy Jarvis and 3 other characters. Shelley from Friday the 13th Part 3. And there's another biker chick, an African-American biker chick. She's from Friday the 13th Part 3 as well. But everybody else in the game is a newly created game. Although there are nods, like, for instance, to Friday the 13th New Blood, where there's a character named Victoria, who, like, that's a nod to that. Like, there's a woman that's, like, I think it's a loose knockoff. I don't really think that's, like, the same actress. But I was like, oh, this is a loose knockoff of that character. And so, you know, and, like, you know, and the Jasons are all played by Kane Hodder, who played Jason Friday the 13th from Friday the 13th New Blood onward up to Jason X. And so Kane Hodder played all the Jasons in these. And so it's really fun. And also, you know, you have the Pamela where he's, like, talking to him through his head. And, you know, you have the cabin. It's like every little attention to detail is great. There's also challenges that recreate iconic scenes from the movie to, you know, like they have the sleeping bag kills and they have, like, the from Friday the 13th, The New Beginning. And so they have all kind of things that are nods to the movie. And there's also, like, you know, Friday the 13th Part 5, which is a new beginning, where they have Roy. You can play as Roy and kill people. And they have the same house from the movie and everything. It's awesome. And also, I really enjoy that, you know, there's, you know, they also have this, my favorite part is the virtual cabin, where it's basically Easter egg hunt, basically, where you can do all these cool challenges in the game where you're like, oh, you gotta go find this patch and put all the patches, and you open the door, and then you gotta call this number, and then you gotta call this, find this numbers, you gotta call this number, and then you go down there, and then you gotta go out in the cemetery and get killed by Jason, and then you gotta do it this way to sneak and get this arrow, and then you gotta go to the cabin and steal this, and then you gotta, you know, and it keeps giving you false endings, and then eventually you get to Jason X. You get to the Grendel, like you're walking through the Grendel, and then, like, Jason X comes out and kills you and says Jason X coming soon. But unfortunately, this game was great. This game was fantastic. I loved it. I know when it came out at first, it was rocky because this was a Kickstarter game. Okay, this was because originally they said no studio, because at the time horror games were not popular, so no real studio believed in them. So they said, like, you know, like, nobody, because, like, before Friday the 13th, there really were no horror games. Like, there was, like, the Saw games, like maybe 1 or 2 other games, but really there was no horror games. Horror movies were not video games because nobody wanted to play horror movie games. So, like, it'd just be a single story mission game where there's no real fun enjoyment. And I said, you want to make a multiplayer Jason game? No, it's stupid. So they went, you know, and they said that also, even though the developers that were interested said, like, it's not going to be as gruesome, you can't do a lot of kills in the game, that. So they're like, all right, watch this. And so they went Kickstarter, and then they raised their money within a month or two, and then guess what? They put pre-orders out, and guess what? They got, you know, I even contributed, and guess what? I got a game, and I played it with my friends day one, even though they said that first the online, you know, kept crashing because did a beta, and the servers were, they were thinking it was going to be around like 20,000 people playing. It was actually like 60 to 100,000 players. And so they were like, oh crap, and they did not estimate that. So they had to get more servers. And of course, they said, well, just so that way, if you want to play, they said, play with friends, meet new friends. They were like going online saying, hey, on their website, going, hey, just meet new people. Just go and try to play off, go play with people in private matches, meet friends, and that's how I met, I met some buddies of mine, and now I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? We occasionally we still play, and I'm like, it was real fun playing with other people, and it was just great. I enjoyed it, and getting to play as camp counselor, and and when it came out it was a buggy start, but then it became fun, and then of course they kept giving, like, they got NES Jason from the Nintendo version, and it just really was a fun experience. And of course, which it led to, I think Dead by Daylight came out first, but I think Dead by Daylight wasn't really known as a horror IP game until now. Like, now it is, but like, for instance, when it came out, it was just original ideas of a killer, kind of like, fixing generators, but then they start adding IP killers to the game. So really, it's not really a horror movie game, it's just with IP killers, kind of like Fortnite, where it's not a movie game, it's just, but like Friday 13, I would say, was the kind of the big launching stone of horror movie IP horror games. Because if you know this, Dead by Daylight started getting IP characters for their game to try to make it more, feels like more like Friday. And also, we got, of course, after that, like the Blair Witch Project, the game, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space we're getting now, which is developed by the game director of Friday the 13th game. And then also we're getting a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game from the Friday the 13th guys. And the Illuphonic went on to make Predator Hunting Grounds. And they also make Ghostbusters, the game. And, Evil Dead, the game, was developed by Saber Interactive. And I'm like, we wouldn't have got that game if Friday the 13th hadn't been so successful. Because, like, that game came out in 2017. And I don't think Evil Dead would have even happened if it wasn't for Friday the 13th. Because Friday the 13th kind of was the first game to show, hey, we can make online horror multiplayer games. And, of course, we wouldn't have got that if it wasn't for. We wouldn't have had Texas Chainsaw Massacre game or Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or Blair Witch Project. I think all those games really wouldn't have come out if it wasn't for Friday the 13th, the game. And I really owe them a thank you, because yeah, it sucks what happened, because what happened was they made a deal with Sean S. Cunningham, the director of the game, and they got the legal rights and everything to make it, but it made a shitty deal with him, because and then of course he tried to screw over the writer of the game. It's a whole long story, but basically, in short, the writer sued Sean Cunningham, and they went to court over it, and basically the judge awarded the writer of the movie, Victor Miller, the rights to the whole franchise, which that means they had to shut the game down. They couldn't make any more content because the deal they made with Sean Cunningham was sketchy, and so they're like, we can't. They didn't want to avoid getting sued, nothing, so they said the best legal option, the lawyer advised them, was just not to make any more content. That way you can excuse yourself from the suit. And so that's what they did, and I know people gave them shit for that, saying, why don't you make more content? How come they can make more action figures and movies? And they're like, because they actually made, the studios were the ones that, and Funko and all of them were able to make good deals with them, because they had big lawyers, and like, they're an independent video game studio. They weren't like a big company, and so they weren't able, like their lawyer, now they said with Texas, don't worry, with Texas, they said they have a great lawyer, and Victor, Ken Hankel and Toby Hooper's estates are buddies, and they basically 100% support them. They're good. They're like, everything is good. But yeah, that's what they said, and it really sucks. And people still give them shit online, like, oh yeah, dead game, Texas Chainsaw Massacre going up like Friday, and they're getting a lawsuit and screw us over again. It wasn't like they wanted to, and it really sucks. But they did promise what they gave us. They promised us a game, online multiplayer game with Camp Crystal Lake and Jason as a killer. And we got that. And it was just a bonus that they gave us more killers and more maps. And I want to say thank you, Gun Media. And I really do think this is a fun game. And I really would check it out. I know the servers, are going to be shut down soon, But, where it's going to be much harder unless you play with the private matches. It's going to be really hard to play online. But I really recommend, buying the game. It's like $5 on the PlayStation Store. I don't know how much it is on PC or Xbox. But it's $5 on the PlayStation Store, and it's 99 cents for the DLCs, which are just like kills from the movies and clothing. So I recommend it if you haven't played it. If I had to give this game a grade, I would give it a solid 9.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching.